I'm very delighted that some of you found the way this morning to our side event. And of course, first of all, I would like to say welcome to our esteemed speakers for their time to explore enables in achieving a just hydrogen transition. And also thank you very much, Ms. Gillian Joseph, our moderator. We had the possibility to listen to your moderation yesterday. Thank you very much for that. And yes, our issue today, clean hydrogen, we think it holds waste and tapped potential for driving new industrial development in developing countries and economies in transition, and for transforming energy systems to net zero. And for us as UNIDO, it's so important that hydrogen-based value chain development offers great opportunities to producer countries that are often located, as you know, in developing countries and in countries with economies in transition. And these opportunities include economic diversification, job creation, skills development, as well as energy security. And only 23 sizable clean hydrogen projects were operational in 2022, and to deploy this technology at scale, several challenges need to be addressed, and we want to discuss today two of them: financing of hydrogen production facilities, electrolyzers and infrastructure. Here we need to find new and innovative solutions for de-risking the enormous investment needed, and policy instrument and standards to promote an international market and to better match demand and supply. And clean hydrogen can pave the way for net zero industrial development, but we need to make sure that this transition is a just one. And contributing to this aim, we as UNIDO, we initiated our global program for hydrogen in industry to accelerate the global production and local production of clean hydrogen in industries of developing countries and transition economies. And just recently, we have taken on the coordination of the International Hydrogen Trade Forum to facilitate new trade corridors. Here, we want to ensure that needs and benefits of the global south are considered. So, ladies and gentlemen, a just hydrogen transition needs all of us to work together to share knowledge and resources. And now I look forward to seeing a discussion which explores effective solutions that places an inclusive, sustainable industrial development at the heart of the just hydrogen transition. And I wish us a fruitful session. And once more, thanks to the panelists arrived this morning or yesterday evening, once more for your contributions. Thank you very much.
Thank you for those opening remarks. So let's crack on. Just to make you aware at the start that we are going to open the floor for questions from the audience. So if you can be thinking with that in mind of a question that you might like to ask to the panel. Now, clean hydrogen is being promoted as the fuel of the future for being clean, storable and portable. While it can serve as a clean energy carrier and storage option for renewable energy, clean hydrogen has also the potential to substitute fossil fuel to decarbonize economic activities and create unique opportunities for a net zero industrial development for developing countries that have abundant renewable power potential. At present, the majority of hydrogen is currently produced from fossil fuel-based sources, such as natural gas and coal, also defined as grey hydrogen, accounting for more than 95% of the global hydrogen production. Transitioning industrial processes with clean hydrogen and enabling net zero industrial development is crucial. However, the investment committed to hydrogen projects in developing countries remains low due to a number of persisting barriers and uncertainties in regulatory, economic, and financing aspects. Now, UNIDO's global program for hydrogen in industry supports developing countries and transitioning economies to fully benefit from the new opportunities that clean hydrogen can bring for net zero industrial development and local value addition. So let's crack on and meet the panel for the discussion for this topic. First of all, I'd like to call to the stage Markus Exenberger. Markus is a member of the executive board of the H2 Global Stiftung. He's an economist and engineer and spent 20 years managing large and complex energy portfolios in Europe, Asia, Africa, and the Americas, dealing in particular with the development of large-scale energy and infrastructure projects. Amongst others, he worked for the German Society for International Cooperation, GmbH, and international consulting companies. Markus has initiated H2 Global together with Timo Bollehay. Please do take a seat. Thank you. Next, I'd like to call to the stage Sylvie Maher Sorensen. She's an investment professional with 15 years of experience in project management and infrastructure financing in Africa. She joined the African Development Bank in 2013, working first on the appraisal of public sector energy operations before joining the private sector infrastructure finance and PPP division and the Energy Financial Solutions team in 2018. Over the past 10 years at the bank, Sylvie was based in Tunis, Abidjan, and Nairobi. As Chief Investment Officer, Sylvie led the appraisal, structuration, and negotiations of power generation projects totaling about 1.5 GW of capacity across Africa. Welcome. And last but not least, please welcome to the stage Anne-Catherine Biago. Over the past 14 years, she has worked with an innovation, technology development, and sustainable development in shipping through both private stakeholders like Maersk and not-for-profit organizations like Green Ship of the Future. Since 2020, she's been part of the Center for Zero Carbon Shipping and is currently leading the strategy and sustainability work there. She holds an MSc from Copenhagen Business School and an executive MBA from the Technical University of Denmark. Please welcome the entire panel to the stage once more. Now, just to frame the discussion that we're going to have, we're going to be looking at how clean hydrogen can advance sustainable industrialized pathways. So your thoughts on that will be required. How we can remove unnecessary regulatory barriers to facilitate clean hydrogen trade, what's needed for developing countries to become key players in this arena. So, with those thoughts in mind, I'm going to come to you first of all, Markus, for you to tell us a bit more about the H2 Global Initiative and how that potentially will ramp up the clean hydrogen market.
Thank you very much. First of all, thank you very much for having me here today. I started my career in development cooperation 25 years ago, so I'm very familiar with the international cooperation. And my colleague and I, Timo Bollehay, we developed the idea of H2 Global 2.5 years ago or 3 years ago. It was a little bit out of a frustration of knowing that existing instruments for ramping up the hydrogen market are. That was our thesis, our thought, are too slow if you really would like to reach our 2030, 2035 goals, etc. What we figured out during 20 years working in different sectors, especially now in the financial sector, is that whoever you asked what is necessary to ramp up the market, you received always the same answer: offtake. You really need to create an offtake to make sure that projects can be bankable. And based on that thesis and taking into consideration that there is no market for green hydrogen, a market for green hydrogen and green hydrogen derivatives needs to be developed, because there is nothing. That was, let's say, the initial point when we started the idea of creating H2 Global, to overcome this chicken and egg problem why nobody's investing in hydrogen and green hydrogen derivatives. We started as well with the idea to have it as competitive as it can be. So really to make sure that we are using funds provided by governments as efficient as possible, and not paying things in advance like CAPEX finance mechanisms are doing. So really just paying or using the funds available or provided by the governments just when the product is there, just to make it really as efficient, as secure as possible. Another thing is for us, or was for us, very important. There are certain risks in the market. When you want to develop a market, you need to reduce such kind of risks, regulatory risks. So just to describe the product, so there was no description of what is green, what is, how the molecule or how the product should look like. All that. All these things need to be reduced when you would like to create and to develop a market. And that's exactly where H2 Global starts. What we are providing now through H2 Global is a so-called double auction mechanism, provided with funds from the German government. It is now for the first round of auctions. We started already in the beginning of this year, 900 million euros. We started 3 auctions, and whoever provides the best bid, the lowest price based on criteria set, will get the strike. So we are now in the final stage of these particular auctions, and within the next couple of weeks we will finalize these first auctions, and then we can make 3 strikes. So that means 3 different projects will get the strike, will get a 10-year offtake guarantee. So that means our trader, called HINCO, Hydrogen Intermediary Company, will buy these products for fixed price, for a guaranteed price over a period of 10 years. That creates investment security because we have a secured offtake. We are government backed because we have the guarantee provided by the German government. So our trader HINCO can act as a AAA investor or as a blue chip investor on the market. So if you can get a contract provided by HINCO, you can go to your bank, you can bind your finance on this offtake contract. What HINCO will do now, so they will not store these products, of course, they will sell these products time divergent into the European market. Time divergent means as short as possible. We will sell it, we will buy it for 10 years, but we will sell it only for 1 year into the German or into the European market. That has 2 reasons. First of all, we want to get the highest possible price, and we expect that the price will increase within the next years because of upcoming regulation.
Hello? Yes, good morning.
Hello?
Yeah.
We've got an extra panelist.
Okay, that's good. Because of what we expect, higher willingness to pay now within the next couple of years. So we just want to make sure that the price gap between the high price we most probably need to pay for the product, for the green product, and the expected price for bringing it into the market, that this price gap is as small as possible. But there is another reason why we are doing it like this, so in a very short auction. We want to create price signals. The price signal is, for our understanding, the most important thing what you need to create a market. Because there is absolute uncertainty into the market. Nobody knows what kind of, or what will be the price for a green product, for green derivatives, for green hydrogen, and so on. So really you need to send out transparent price signals to create liquidity into the market. And that's, let's say, the basic instrument or the basic idea behind H2 Global. H2 Global is a very agnostic and a very flexible instrument. It is more or less like a like a toolbox. It can be always used differently. You can extend the lifetime or extend the period of auction frames. So you can say make it for 10 years, for 5 years, for 20 years. Even on the offtake side, you can go short or you can go even longer. You can play with the geographies by saying you want to have a global auction. For the first round of auction, we have a global auction. But for the second round of auction, most probably we will have it based on different geographies. Maybe one for the Americas, one for Asia, one for Africa, and so on. Just to make sure that you even can diversify the production of green hydrogen and green hydrogen derivatives. You can promote technologies by saying that, for example, you would like to want to promote the technology of direct air capture. You can set this particular thing as a criteria, and then everybody who wants to attend in the auction needs to follow these criteria and needs to offer then direct air capture. You can even use different criteria in regards of sustainability by saying you want to add some sustainability criteria, or you want to add whatever other things related to security for our cooperation in the science sector, cooperation in different other sectors, just to make sure that you can create a local production or local offtake. All that can be combined with H2 Global. Just allow me one last word. H2 Global, we started as an initiative made for the German government, but right from the beginning it was, and this is based on what the German government even wanted to have, H2 Global as a European initiative, and we became European. The European Commission decided this year in summer to use H2 Global for the so-called European Hydrogen Bank. So what we are doing now for the German government, we are doing right now as well for all other member states in the European Commission and even other countries like America, like Australia, like Japan, like Korea, other countries in the Middle East, United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia are very much interested now in cooperating with H2 Global. So it becomes really a global initiative. And this is very important for us, especially now for our today's topic, how to promote hydrogen and how to ease the access for developing countries to the global market.
Marcus, thank you very much for that very comprehensive answer. You mentioned amongst the topics there, finance, and I wanted to bring Sylvie in on that, just to ask what role can development finance institutions play in boosting clean hydrogen developments, especially for developing countries and, transitioning economies?
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, thank you, and it's great to meet Marcus. Together with Timo, they created H2 Global, and Timo used to be a colleague at African Development Bank. We worked together for 2 years, so it's great to see maybe that the experience that he had with the African Development Bank fed into this wonderful initiative. So let me also thank the UNIDO for inviting the African Development Bank to take part in this panel on the side of the 20th General Assembly of UNIDO. We do hope that this is the beginning of many more collaborations to come between our institutions. So before I started my new role at the bank, I worked for 7 years as a Chief Investment Officer in the Energy Financial Solutions. And this is the team that is in charge of originating and structuring all private sector deals in the energy space in Africa, and especially renewable energy projects, which represents nearly 100% of our generation-related financing approval for the past 5 years at the bank. So we've been very much involved through that renewable energy angle into the conversation on how to develop green hydrogen in Africa. And the African Development Bank even hosted the Africa Green Hydrogen Alliance inaugural forum in our headquarters city, Abidjan, Côte d'Ivoire, last year. So we've been following this conversation from the beginning, and over the past 2 years, we've seen dozens of MOUs being signed between African governments and private sector companies to develop green hydrogen projects. I think the total amount is over 150 gigawatts of capacity. Those projects are extremely ambitious, but they're also early stage. So there's a lot of buzz, there are a lot of announcements. but up to now, reality is that none of these projects have reached financial close. So there is a learning curve. We still have to learn the lessons on what makes those projects bankable in Africa in particular, and in emerging economies in general. And it's a learning curve for everyone, for the developers, for governments, for investors, and for lenders, including the FIs. So there is a buzz, definitely. There's a momentum building up. But the question is, how do we move from that buzz to boom, and how do we really scale up? And as a DFI, I think we see several levers to unlock that green hydrogen value chain in emerging economies, and in particular in Africa, which is my point of reference, is first of all setting national strategies and having this long-term vision. Egypt has done it as the first country in Africa to do it at COP27, launching that green hydrogen vision with the help of DFI. It's working on regulations, as Marcus said it. It's making sure we have access to off-takers, especially long-term ones, access to cheap capital, de-risking those projects, and also for us as development bank, make sure that we work on the innovation and the skills locally to make sure that that transition to hydrogen is just. And DFIs are working on all those levers, but you, I think, asked about what we can do in terms of de-risking these projects in emerging economies. And as you know, actual and perceived risks are the key driver for the cost of capital and the cost of green hydrogen, and how attractive it's going to be at the end for potential buyers out there. And you have risks that are specific to a nascent clean hydrogen industry in emerging economies. And those are related to the fact that we don't yet have a track record of this technology working at scale. I mean, the technology is proven, but for megawatt project, not for gigawatt project. So there's a question mark on the ability of that technology to work at scale and at the volumes that we're seeing. There is uncertainty around demand, around off-taker, around prices. There's a lack of enabling infrastructure for hydrogen. So those are the risks that are specific to this new green hydrogen industry in emerging economies. And then you have the risk of all or any kind of large infrastructure projects which are linked to political, microeconomic, regulatory, permitting risks. And DFIs can help both on the kind of policy de-risking side and the financial de-risking side. Policy de-risking tools are linked to really addressing the root causes of the risks. So by that we mean offering technical assistance to improve the regulatory framework, set up clear policies around development of green hydrogen, increase institutional capacity, and so on. And on the financial risk side, we have instruments such as guarantees, political risk insurance, can support local currency, mitigate the FX risks, and so on. But even if you de-risk a project to the maximum of your ability, nowadays, you're still going to have this price gap that Marcus mentioned between green hydrogen and gray hydrogen. And the role of DFIs, I believe, is to help reduce that price gap beyond de-risking by offering cheap financing, concessional funding, to reduce the cost of capital and make sure that green hydrogen sourced from emerging economies, such as Africa, is indeed competitive.
Thank you. Let's move to Anne-Catherine now. And I wanted to bring in your work in terms of the global maritime industry, which accounts for approximately 3% of total emissions. How is the Centre for Zero Carbon Shipping contributing to decarbonize the maritime industry? What's your role?
Thank you, and thank you for having me here today. It's a pleasure being here. So the center was set up 3 years ago with a foundation, with funding from the A.P. Møller Foundation, with one purpose, and that was to help de-risk the decarbonization of the maritime industry from a technical perspective. So basically what we're trying to do is that we are dealing quite systematically with the different fuel pathways that are relevant for the maritime industry. However, 3 years down the line, we see that the technical challenges are not at the core of the issue. We will solve that, in other words. And we have a lot of projects dealing with the different fuel pathways, making sure that that we are able to use the different fuels on board the vessels, that the bunkering will work, that the safety is in place, so on and so forth. We will get that sorted, no doubt. The big challenge is the policy framework, and it's the scale of supply. So what we can see now is that, as Marcus was asking for, is that we need that commitment to offtake, and we need the demand signal from the various industries. And so that's really a core focus for us. So we're trying to generate the demand needed, the demand signals needed from the maritime industry. We work on different fuel pathways. So for shipping, quite likely we will see ammonia as the big game changer, and we will see methanol as particularly relevant in certain regions and for some segments. Hydrogen, for the time being, is for short sea shipping, near coastal shipping, a key contributor to decarbonizing the industry. So it's an important factor there. For deep sea shipping, it's more part of generating or developing both ammonia and e-methanol. So a key component, of course, but from different perspectives. At the center in Copenhagen, we have around 120 people looking at various areas of the challenges. So we have the technical perspective, as I mentioned before, but we also have the policy framework that we need to develop in time to support decarbonization in line with the Paris Agreement trajectory, basically. I think one thing that I want to pull out in this context is the issue of scale. I mentioned it before, but what we need to understand is that the current announced capacity of electrolyzers, we would need to assign 20% of that for shipping alone, the global capacity. So we need to talk about how we accelerate and scale these different technologies to a level that is, to the level necessary. When it comes to ammonia, for instance, if we say that shipping alone would need what constitutes around 7 exajoule of energy in 2050, that means that we would need around 750 ammonia plants to be in place by 2050. If methanol was the fuel of choice for the industry, it would mean that we would need around 5,000 methanol plants in place by 2050. So again, repeating, we need to talk about the scale, we need to talk about the scale of investments needed, and then we need to talk about how we can make this happen in a way that doesn't necessarily replicate the current system, but that we also use this opportunity and the energy transition to rethink the current system. There is no need for the shipping industry to bunker in Singapore, for instance, if the actual development of fuel and fuel supply is in a region in Africa, for instance. So we need to look at how the system works today, and as we develop the technology pathways, we need to rethink the system, basically.
Okay, thank you. I've just been handed a note just to say, can you keep your microphones a little bit closer when you're speaking so that everyone can hear? Marcus, I wonder if you could talk a little bit more about establishing the markets, creating the demand, how you grow that need for this energy supply source.
There is a limited amount of hydrogen available, green hydrogen available within the next couple of years, because we need to scale up the production. There is, or let's put it on the other way. We have around 15,000 MOUs, LOIs, whatever signed, but we have at least, in a very optimistic manner, up to 4% of all these contracts have an FID. So that's the reason why, you know, we need to make projects really bankable, and this can be done only through stimulation of the offtake. And what I think what is very crucial now, what I think what is very crucial, you can see even countries like Saudi Arabia, like other countries in the Middle East, they are not able right now to bring the green products into the market for competitive prices. So even they need another stimulation, they need subsidies, they need support. So this is something what I think what makes it even more challenging for countries without having such kind of, let's say, financial power, with not having whatever such kind of infrastructure available right now. So what we really need is first of all a market creation through transparency, through really transparent price signals, and secondly a lot of support given now to projects. Another example. We all know that this IRA in the US is a very powerful instrument. We were asked, we as H2Glo were asked in the beginning of this year by the US government to develop a second scheme for the US government to create more demand in the US, because they have the problem that based on these financial power given through the IRA, they will produce a lot, but they need really a stimulation for their own market to create demand. What will be done with all these products? Of course, they will be exported. So even that, you know, is for a global market creation. It is, I wouldn't say a challenge, but at least this is a very strong power from a market who received a lot of subsidies and a lot of support provided by their government. So I think if we want to develop markets in Europe, in Asia, and we want to stimulate production in Africa or in Latin America, a lot of really direct support given by governments, given by multilateral institutions is necessary and needed, beside everything what needs to be done regarding regulation, regarding whatever national plans to support markets. But if we really want to develop the market, we need to do so. And just allow me one other thing. We are always talking about, should it be green, should it be clean, should it be blue, or whatever. If we don't have the time to discuss such kind of issues, we have to do whatever we can as fast as possible. And if it is for a time being blue, I would say personally it is fine. But our goal needs to be always clean and green. Just to give you one example, if we would proceed like we are doing right now, we have to capture and storage in 2050 32 billion tons of CO2 per year, 23 billion tons per year through direct air capture. That would need an amount of electricity of 26,000 terawatt hours. This is the actual production capacity we have in the world. So just because of that, we can talk about blue, but green is the future. That's the only possible way. So we shouldn't waste too much time in whatever in talking about colors and so on. For a time being, I'm quite sure we need blue, but at least on the mid and on the long-term perspective, there is no other way than green.
So, Marcus, you're suggesting that for the moment we should at least be colourblind. And Sylvie, would you agree that there is a sense of urgency? There are estimates projecting the African continent's potential to produce $1 trillion worth of clean hydrogen. Do you agree that that needs to be harnessed right now?
Yeah, no, truly the potential for green hydrogen in Africa is enormous, and that is spurring wonderful dreams of growth for the continent, and it's good to keep that potential in mind to trigger hope, but also, of course, action and fast action. But at the same time, as our president, Mr. Adesina, likes to say, you don't eat potential. And that potential, that buzz needs to materialize in growth that is real and that is inclusive for the host countries and for the African people. And a way to do that, and I agree, demand-side policies are keys, but also on the host country side, there need to be a move to become credible supplier, I want to say. And this is done by them showing that they are able and willing to share some of the risks of these projects by investing right now into the supporting infrastructure for green hydrogen, so transmission line, ports, storage, pipelines, and so on, but also strengthening the regulatory framework. And the bank and other DFIs are helping in doing so. I mentioned guarantees and technical assistance, and we also have, of course, the infrastructure loans and so on. But there is one thing that I would like to highlight that the African Development Bank is doing at the moment to support host countries to accelerate that investment into the green hydrogen train, and this is through the African Legal Support Facility. Currently, the African Legal Support Facility hosted by the bank is supporting the governments of Egypt, Mauritania, and Namibia to negotiate on a level playing field with the private sector very complex green hydrogen agreements to make sure that those are balanced, that they are fair, and they are sustainable. There are lessons to be learned from the extractive industry, and even though the potential is enormous, the risks are also there for African countries to make a lot of sacrifices in terms of not taking tax revenues and stuff like that to attract FDIs in the green hydrogen space, but then being frustrated that there are no commensurate benefits for their own populations. So facilities such as this, the African Legal Support Facility can help in ensuring long-term sustainable agreements that are fair for and win-win for all parties, and I think that's also something to keep in mind.
I like that you said, Sylvie, that you can't eat potential. That's a great quote. And with that in mind, I'd like to turn to Anne-Catherine to talk about some of the actual things that are happening. I wonder if you can tell us about the Green Corridor pre-feasibility blueprint and the centre's cooperation with, is it Chile?
Absolutely. So one of the things that we want to do at the center is that we want to enable more actors to get going on the One of the things that we want to do at the center is we want to enable more actors to get going with the transition. And so whatever experience we build up, whatever knowledge we create at the center, we share openly. And one of these elements is what we call Green Corridor blueprints. And so I want to just spend a couple of minutes explaining what a green corridor is, because I think that's quite important. Effectively, it's large-scale demonstration projects that demonstrates how you can make a specific route between 1, 2, or more ports green. So having a vessel trading there, engaging the port, engaging the local authorities or the government, engaging a fuel production facility or a fuel supplier, and preferably also a cargo owner. So you have representatives from the entire value chain involved in a specific demonstration projects. Now, if you see the trade media for maritime, you might get the impression that there are 10, 20 plus green corridors out there. That's not the situation, unfortunately, because it takes time to build up these projects. And as you say, you can't eat potential. But there is potential for a lot of green corridors out there. It's also difficult work because you need to figure out what are the the best ways of getting going, what are the most meaningful corridors to begin for a country. And so in the case with Chile, we've been working with them for a year and a half, and we have been into some quite thorough analysis on which ports in which regions that make sense to try and decarbonize. And there are different perspectives into making that decision. One is the technical perspective, so where could it work fast? But then there's also the social perspective. Where do we have the skill sets, the people available to create to actually do the work and be involved in the development of this green corridor? And then there is a third thing that you might want to take into consideration, and that is access to energy. So when you build up energy supply, green energy supply, you want to make sure that you don't just extract that for a industry. You want to make sure that you actually help the region in question. And in the case of Chile, we have southern part of Chile, which has some challenges in terms of stable energy supply. And so there it makes a lot of sense to set up a green corridor that both produces fuel for the maritime industry, but also supports the energy access in that region specifically. And I think that's a really nice example of how different agendas needs to go hand in hand. So we have a technological development and demonstration process that we need to get going as fast as possible, but we cannot do it without consideration of the community that we are part of and the people involved. So trying to merge those. And in the case of Chile, they have a just transition vision for the country, so that makes it easier to merge those two agendas, which makes a lot of sense for us in the way we work.
Sylvia, you wanted to come in.
I just want to say amen to that, because I think now the conversation is evolving, and at the beginning when we heard the private sector talking about green hydrogen development in emerging economies and in Africa in particular, this aspect of just transition and benefiting local communities was absent from the discourse. And so I'm so happy to hear what you just said, because it would be indeed very unfortunate if Africa or other global south countries had this incredible resource and just export it out cheaply. In countries I'm familiar with, like Mauritania and Namibia, energy access is under 50%. So you wouldn't be able to conceive to see electricity used to produce ammonia being produced massively, but not helping solving this electricity access problem. Same with water. Lots of these green hydrogen developments are going to be located in deserts or rural areas that are very arid. And so developing those projects without thinking about irrigation solution or drinking water solution for the communities around, doesn't make sense. So that growth needs to be inclusive, as you said. The move from buzz to boom, as I like to call it, when it comes to green hydrogen, must be inclusive.
Thank you. And at this point, I remember what I said at the start, we're going to open the floor to questions from the audience. Has anybody thought of their question and would like to ask? Just raise your hand, and I think the microphone will come to you. Are there any questions from the floor? I'm not missing anyone. You're being very shy. I don't know if you've woken up yet this morning. Okay, well, while you have a think, if there's anybody that wants to ask a question to the panel, and you're formulating that question, I know, in your mind, think on while we continue with our panel. So, just some of the common questions. Marcus, we'll come back to you on this one. So industries are at the heart of the clean hydrogen transition. I'm sure you'd agree with that. What are the key components? You probably talked a little bit about them before. What are the key components that need to be further addressed to domestically produce and apply clean hydrogen in developing countries?
Bankability is key. So we have to make sure that these projects are really bankable. Secondly, I would say the logistic transport is very important. So to have an infrastructure, let's say, just to give you an example, the northern part of Africa is very close connected to Europe, to one of the main off-takers now, at least for the next decades, for sure. So pipeline systems are partly available within the next couple of years. So this is a real advantage. Nevertheless, countries in the southern part or more southern part of Africa, especially, let's say, for example, South Africa, Namibia, they have a long history now in Fischertropsch, and they are, I would say, one of the key players. They will be one of the key players now worldwide for the production, for example, of synthetic fuels now for the airline and for the shipping sector. So there are a lot of potentials. But allow me just one other thing. What I would, and that's something where we started as well with H2 Global, with the idea. I think what is really necessary is a competition of ideas in Africa, in other countries, that really the good projects within countries can compete against each other for getting support, just to make sure that we can really unleash local support, local empowerment, that you know, all that what is really there on the market.
How do you foster that competition of ideas, though? How do you create that?
Just for example, a DFI, whatever, other institutions, banks, whatever, would provide a certain amount of support by saying we want to support the best projects out of a competition. That would, from my understanding, really help. It is much better than saying, you know, we want to support whatever particular region, a particular country, or whatever. Just make sure that really all the power, all the ideas, all the concepts who are really there in the market can be really used. And from my understanding, a competition is always a good way to be efficient and efficient with finance and with all other resources.
Sylvie, what do you think to that idea of supporting competition?
Yeah, no, competition is good. Definitely helps out weeding out the bad from the good projects. There are not that many good projects out there, and when I say good projects or bankable projects, for us, the way we look at it is, I think number one is, does it have a credible, creditworthy, long-term off-taker? I mean, everybody will tell you that, and that's why we really applaud H2 Global as an initiative. It is critical, it's essential, it is a condition sine qua non of this happening. We need 10, 20 times the ability of the H2 Global. So Marcus mentioned 900 million. I think we need 10 times, 20 times that to really unlock the potential of green hydrogen in emerging economies. Strong sponsors, energy side or the LNG side, but they're also learning. And you know, if they have an established track record in putting together large-scale renewable plants in emerging economies, that's good. If they have deep pockets, that's even better. And also, if interests are aligned between those sponsors and the off-taker, that's a good sign. So meaning if the off-taker is also participating into the equity structure, we see that as a good practice. And of course, having a robust EPC and technology provider is something that we also look very favorably at. So if there is competition, yes, we would support the best project, but those best projects will have to have those features I just mentioned.
Okay, we're going to go for a final question to Anne-Catherine, unless we have a question from the floor. Oh, we do. I'm getting a thumbs up. Okay, let's take that question, please.
It's actually a question from the audience online. How do you think green and blue hydrogen can help to achieve the SDGs? Should national hydrogen strategies address this issue? Which SDGs can hydrogen deployment help to address?
Who would like to take that? Marcus, we know, is colourblind, so maybe you can talk about the green and blue.
I'm not sure if I catch it up.
Let's just take the first part of the question,
How do you think green and blue hydrogen can help to achieve the SDGs?
The SDGs? Okay, yes.
Catherine, you'd like to take it?
So I think there are a lot of different ways, or a lot of different SDGs that needs to be considered here. So of course there's the better access to clean energy. That's a no-brainer. But then we also have creating decent work is also a key part of it. There is also life under water, which is maybe a bit of a stretch, but what I want to get at is that we have natural ecosystems in the regions in question that we need to take care of, and we need to make sure that we don't do any damage there. Of course, there's the question of water consumption, which is super important. There is also fair and equal, and sorry for not being super precise on the SDGs, but just mentioning all the different issues that this can address. There's also the creation of decent jobs and more inclusive jobs. The energy transition can also be gender transformative, I think. We need sort of an all-hands-on-deck situation here. We have an all-hands-on-deck situation, so there is absolutely no need for us to leave out half of the population or any minority groups that are not necessarily addressing this. So I think if you look at the ways, the different, if you look at the Sustainable Development Goals, there are many issues that you can address through this.
Marcus, would you like to add?
What I already mentioned, so I think at least for a time being, we have to be colorblind, and we need enormous amounts of hydrogen and hydrogen derivatives by even short notice. It took decades to develop the gas market or the LNG markets. We don't have the time. So we have to do what we did in the gas market for at least 40 years. We have to do whatever in 5, 6 or 10 years. So because of that, we need the resource. And of course, it needs to be in line with the SDGs. But like I said before, I think that the future is green, and it will diversify even the potential producers or countries where the hydrogen can be produced. And I would say this is very much in the benefit of Africa or of other countries in the global south. So yeah, let's be colorblind at least for a couple of years.
And if I may also complement, you touched upon it about creating decent jobs. Definitely the workforce needs to be trained today for reaping the benefits of those job opportunities coming tomorrow. And the African Development Bank has an initiative on that called Job for Youth, where we train students for the jobs of tomorrow, technological jobs and so on, including green hydrogen related jobs. But we also have set up, through the Sustainable Energy Fund for Africa, a facility that provides technical assistance to pay for the feasibility studies of green hydrogen projects, but also provide reimbursable grants to finance the construction of the project and reduce the cost of capital so that the price of green hydrogen is cheaper. But the eligibility criteria to benefit from this assistance is linked to the benefits, local or regional benefits of these projects in Africa. So we want to support projects that maximize local jobs, local industrializations, skill development and skill transfers locally.
Okay, thank you. And on that point, I'd like to thank the panel. Marcus, who's encouraging us to be colourblind, at least for the moment, to ease progress. Sylvie, who's told us that we cannot eat potential, so also there is urgency. And Anne-Catherine, who has advised us on not only taking but also giving back to communities and markets. Thank you very much for your insights and for a wonderful discussion. Can you join me in thanking the panel for the hour? Thank you.
Thank you very much.